going on, guys? I am Simple Simon and welcome to the second last episode of the New 50 NOOB. Now, some of you who know me may know that I often don't find time to read my comics as much as I love them, and sometimes I just go through phases in life where I just don't read comics at all. But with all the quarantine stuff that's been going on recently, I've actually found a bit of time to read a few titles. I've got a to-read pile that is just, it's embarrassing. So today's episode, I'm going to talk about a few of the books or titles that I've read recently. But before I do that, if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a like, and if you're new to the channel and you enjoy this kind of content, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. Let's do this. Alright, so firstly, this is not a review video. I'm just going to simply talk about some of these titles that I read, maybe say if I like them or not, and we'll go from there. I've got about 7 titles to go through, so I'm going to try to smash through it. Now, some of you who know me know that I'm more of a DC person, but we're going to start off with some Marvel. First book I'm going to talk about is Spider-Man Life Story. This book was written by Chip Zdarsky, and I've heard a lot of great things about this book. I've had the collection sitting in my pile for a long time, and I decided to finally get off my ass and read it. It was quite good. I did enjoy it. Basically, for those who don't know about it, it basically is Spider-Man's life story told in real time. So it's a 6-issue miniseries, and each issue covers a different decade. So issue 1 starts in the 60s, then we've got issue 2, which is the 70s, 80s, 90s, so on, right? Until now. I did enjoy this book. I did like Spider-Man as a kid when I read comics as a kid, as like a young teenager. But I guess because I went through 20 years of not reading, as you know, I am a noob, I don't have the connection and I don't have the memory of the stories that happened throughout Spider-Man's history. So because I don't know his history all that well, I guess it didn't really resonate with me as much as a lot of big time Spider-Man fans. I did enjoy it. It was an enjoyable story. It's very clever the way it was done, but I just feel like there's moments throughout his life story which to some of you guys would be like, oh, that's so amazing, right? But to me, I was just like, oh, I don't really know what happened back then either. So yeah, I did enjoy this series, and I do recommend it if you are a Spider-Man fan. So yeah, first book, Life of Spider-Man Life Story. I do recommend it for Spider-Man fans. It was a good read. Next one is also a Marvel one, a 5-issue miniseries, The Web of Black Widow. I have explained on my channel quite a number of times that I have a thing for Black Widow, but I hadn't really read a lot of her stories. This was the first Black Widow series that I've really read. I've obviously seen her appear in other stories. For me, again, this book was kind of confusing. I did enjoy it as well, but it was quite confusing. They talk about a clone of Black Widow, and again, I don't know if that's happened in Black Widow history or Marvel history, whatever you want to call it, but the story is kind of confusing to me. It wasn't a hard read, it was quite quick, and I didn't mind it, but I can't say I loved it. But yeah, I'm not going to say that it was bad by any stretch, and I'm glad I finally read a Black Widow story. I'll show you my favorite cover, which was issue 3. I like that cover. So yeah, if you are a Black Widow fan, you may enjoy this, but again, just being a noob, it just didn't have that connection with me, because again, as much as I love it, I don't really know a lot about her or anything about comic books. Alright, let's go with some DC. I spent a couple of nights reading a couple of Black Label stories I was behind on. First one is Joker Killer Smile, written by Jeff Lemire. This was quite good. I really enjoyed this. I read the first issue quite a while back, actually, and then I just had a massive break, months of not reading, and I thought, you know what, I enjoyed that first issue, I really should knock this out. Again, it's a really, really quick read. So if you just want to knock out a 3-issue story that's quite quick, you can knock this out very quickly. I'm a slow reader as well, and I still smashed this one out very quickly. I guess it was a psychological thriller. I don't know. I'm Simple Simon. I don't know what I'm talking about. I did quite enjoy this story because I do like the darker type of comic book stories, and this definitely had that feel to it. It was by no stretch a kid's story, hence the whole Black Label thing. My favorite cover of this series, there's a couple of good variants, like the standard covers are kind of average, but my favorite would have to be the book 1 variant. Look at that beauty, yeah? I love it. I do highly recommend this one if you're a Joker fan. Really enjoyable, really good times. Now the next Black Label book I'm going to talk about, again, I read issue 1 quite some time ago when it first came out, and then I recently decided just to knock out the 2nd and 3rd issue. It was another 3-issue series, and that is Joker's girlfriend, or ex-girlfriend now I guess, HARLEEN. Basically a retelling of Harley Quinn's origin story. Really great. I really enjoyed this. It was a long read though. Each issue, and I said I'm a slow reader, each book took me maybe an hour to finish. I think probably just over an hour. Issue 3 was a lot quicker. I think I read that in just under an hour because issue 3 was, I think, the best ones. I've explained before that I like the darker Harley Quinn stories, and this is definitely on the more grown-up side of things, and I really enjoyed it. And once you get to the 3rd issue, things really ramp up to try to wrap the story up. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. If you're a Harley Quinn fan, I can't recommend this enough. It was really good. The art by, I don't know how to say his name, STJEPAN, SEJIC. I tried. The art in this was absolutely off the chain. Every cover is fire, as my buddy God Tank would say. My favorite cover though would have to be just the standard cover for issue 2. I dig that image so much. It's just, you know, I can't even explain it. It's just beautiful art. And in every page is just absolutely on fire with the art. There were some fantastic covers, but yeah, I highly recommend this to just comic book fans, Harley Quinn fans, Batman fans, Joker fans. A really, really great read. But yeah, just a very long read as well. For those who don't know, I am a noob to comic books. I've been into comics for less than 2 years still. And I've been thinking to myself recently, I really should have started comic books with indie titles. When I first started in comics, I had no idea where to start, so superheroes was just the easy option, right? So I kind of dived headfirst into superheroes, and now I'm kind of stuck there. Recently I realized, I reckon if I started with indie titles, I probably wouldn't read superheroes at all. So the next few books are a little bit more indie. First one I'm going to talk about is about as indie as they get. Courier, The Adventures of Geraldine Barker. Now, this is not a complete series. There's actually 6 issues. There's still one more to come. This series is written by Angie Spice, written and drawn by Angie Spice, who I happened to meet at the Days of Future Pop Culture Convention, and I got a chance to interview Angie, and she told me she's obviously working on this comic book, and I was like, I've got to support this. I've got to buy your comics, right? I finally got around to reading it. It's like set in like the 30s, 40s and things. It's set back in the day, right? In Tasmania. It's basically about Geraldine Barker, who is a courier, which is exactly what it sounds like. She's a courier, she's a driver, and basically the mystery of the Tasmanian tiger, right? Now, a few things to say. If you told me what this book was about, I probably wouldn't pick this book up, because I'm not really into those sort of stories that are set back in the day, those sort of period pieces or whatever you want to call it, right? But being that I happened to meet Angie, I wanted to support her and get her book. And I did enjoy it. First thing though, I must say, when I first opened this book, it was not in color, it was in black and white. And I was like, okay, that's different. I wasn't expecting that. I do know that Angie is a bit of an anime fan, so it was very manga, or I know it's pronounced manga, but manga? Hey, I'm a bogan, so I just say manga, right? It had a very anime feel, and what I loved about this is her art style is quite unique. She has her own sort of comic book style, but at the same time, some characters are very, very anime. Like a lot of the times, like when Geraldine is young at the start of the story, she looks like a little cute anime character. So I really like the variation in the art, because I've got my own comic book series in my head, right? It's called Mad World, and I always had this idea of how all the characters would be sort of drawn in a different style. So, you know, I'd have a character that would draw like your traditional superhero looking art, some that would be drawn real, some would look like cartoon characters, and some would look like anime characters, right? So I felt like that art sort of reminded me of what I would want in a comic book. Another thing is, right, the first page of issue 3, I think it was, the first page is on the back of the front cover. So that first page is actually in full color, and it looked amazing, which again reminded me, my own story that I've got in my head. I always thought it'd be cool if the story started off black and white, and as the story developed, more and more color sort of slowly appeared, and then it eventually becomes a full color comic. So it was kind of cool to see. Like, I really wish this whole comic was in color, but yeah, to see that one page done in color just proves, I was like, man, this would look amazing in color. But yeah, look, maybe it's budget, or maybe it's the style she wanted. Obviously she's done this all on her own. By the time you get to, I think, issue 4, you could just tell the comic's completely changed. All the dialogue in the first few issues are handwritten, and by the time you got to these last 2 issues, it's all printed properly, and you can just tell it looked like a completely different book. But yeah, all in all, I did quite enjoy this surprisingly. To me, what makes a good comic book is I want to know what happens, right? That doesn't mean if you leave me on a cliffhanger, I'm going to want to know what happens, but I kind of want to know where this is going. So I will probably pick up issue 6 one day. The thing that annoyed me the most about this is I've got the 4th edition here, the 4th edition. You know me, I need that first print. Angie, if you watch this, how do I get a first print of these covers? Courier, I must say, I surprisingly liked it. Now these 3 issues I've had sitting in my collection for a long time. This is from Image Comics, and it's called The EXCORSISTERS. Sounds right up my alley, right? Look at that. You know me and my goth babes, right? So I've had this sitting in my collection for a long time, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna finally read this. Now the first page I opened, I was just like, I'm not gonna enjoy this. There was something about the art style that I did not like, right? And then halfway through the book, I was just like, oh, I love this. This is a really, really fun read. It reminded me of just like a cartoon, like almost like a more grown-up version of Scooby-Doo or something like that, right? It's basically about these 2 sisters, and one of them is the other one's soul or something like that. But I just found it quite fun, and the banter between the sisters is quite funny. They basically can visit hell and do all these kinds of crazy things. So it's a pretty out there type of story. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. And I am now decided that I'm definitely going to jump on board and start collecting the rest of this. I think they've done maybe 7 or 8 issues so far. So I'm missing a few issues, but I'm going to go back and try to collect them. I really dug this, surprisingly again. The story was able to grab me enough that I didn't care so much about the art. It's not like the art is bad, it just wasn't my style with its first impression. Last one. Now this is probably my favorite read out of all of these, and that is The Magic Order. Again from Image Comics, written by Mark Millar. I remember a long time ago when this finished up, I think issue 6 came out, which I'll just quickly show you because I love this cover. Cordelia Moonstone, I believe that's her name. I saw that cover, I was like, man, I wish I collected that book, right? And if I can't get those first few issues, then I don't bother. I was lucky enough that Mark at Big City Comics, he had a customer who basically didn't pick up his books for forever. And Mark's like, yeah, this guy's never come back, I'm done with this guy. So he basically had this full set on sale, and I was like, give me some of that, right? I've been wanting to read this, and I'm so happy that I was able to get my hands on this because, again, I was gonna read just, I think the first, like read half one night and read the other half of the second night, and I literally just smashed through this in one night. Really dug it. It's about magic, and I've said many times before that magic's not really my thing, but I seem to like magic when the story's written well, and Magic Order was really cool. When I bought it off Mark, he basically said to me, it's like Harry Potter meets The Sopranos, and I was like, that sounds interesting. And it really was cool. It was definitely a dark story. Again, not a story that's for kids. I mean, if you just look at this cover here, it's a lot of grown-up things going on there, you know what I'm saying? It was a really cool read, and I really, really hope, because at the end of the last issue, I believe it said the end of book 1, which makes me think that there's going to be a book 2, I hope. But I think this has been out for a while, and I haven't heard of anything of them releasing another one. Big fan of the character, the lead female, Cordelia, because, you know, look at her, she looks magical. Out of all these reads, I'd have to say for sure this was my favorite one that I read. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you have any interest or thoughts about any of the titles I talked about today. Let me know what you've read lately, or if you've got any recommendations, leave them in the comments below. Only got one more episode of the New 50 Noob, and then this show is done, and I'm going to be basically renaming it, rebranding it, and rebooting it. Yeah, the next and final episode of the New 50 Noob will basically be, I think, just a review, a look back on the 52 episodes. So this is episode 51. Yeah, it's been a fun ride. So hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you continue to watch my shit. Keep it simple.